Hello, everyone. Today I am doing something different. I'm going to do a sort of audiobook where I read a story that I wrote, actually. So let's begin. The Legend of Pip. Dedication. To Temple, my mentor, who has guided me on my journey thus far. Prologue. Long ago, it was a stormy night in Toadstool Village, home to hundreds of tree elves. Thunder roared through the cloudy sky. Lightning streaked through the gray clouds like thin roots in the ground. The wind howled the old, fragile trees like wolves in the night. The full moon, covered by the clouds, gave some semblance of light to the dark forest. It smelled of petrichor, of cold rain meeting dry dirt and overgrown grass. The stifling humidity made it feel as though you were trying to breathe through a blanket. Every small mushroom house's windows were dark, curtains drawn, doors sealed tightly shut. Families huddled together in the dark, covered by blankets, rooms lit by sputtering candles or dancing fires. Children whimpered in fright at every thunderclap. Mothers held their infants close as they wailed in fear. Fathers boarded windows and cooked warm meals, doing anything to keep their homes warm and lit. Outside the houses was a different story. 3 tiny elven warriors thundered through the wet forest on their equally small horses, the sound of hoofs hammering against wet ground. Everything flew by in patches of green. Their small blue tunics were becoming heavy as the fabric became saturated with rainwater. They clung to the wet weather of their reins like their lives depended on it. Their horses were unfazed by the sounds of thunder or the sight of lightning. Among these warriors was an elf named Temple. He was the tallest and strongest of all the warriors. His dirty blonde hair became soaked as he rode on through the night, ensuring that his village would be safe from beasts of the woods during the storm. His green eyes narrowed in determination. His horse, Skip, suddenly skidded to a stop through the mud and let out a fearful whinny. Pulling on the reins, Temple stopped as Skip bucked and kicked. "Whoa, Skip! Easy!" He ran a hand through the horse's white mane, trying to soothe it, until it threw him out of the saddle, rearing up in fright. The rest of the warriors caught up to him. What's wrong with your horse?" Walter asked. Temple pulled firmly on Skip's reins once more as he reared up in terror. "Whoa, boy, whoa!" he yelled as the thunder crashed. Then a sound cut through the air like a knife through butter. A cry. Not just any cry. The cry of an infant. "What the hell?" another warrior named Lou asked in confusion. As he wrangled his horse into position, Temple mounted Skip and rode after the sound. It got louder and louder. Finally, Skip slid to a stop through the mud once again, directly beside a riverbank. The stream roared as it ran over rocks and stones. The crying was louder now, louder than it had ever been. It was originating from a large overgrowth of ferns. Temple dismounted Skip and walked toward the ferns, his pointed boots sliding through the slick, rocky riverbank. His gloved hands pushed and pulled the rough, sticky leaves away. At last, something became visible. It was a small wicker basket. It was a faded yellow, leaves and mud covering it, weathered from the elements. There was a dirty white cloth layering the inside. Something very small was moving beneath the filthy cloth. Heart pounding, he reached a hand out and pulled back the cloth. Buried beneath the cloth, wailing in fright, was a small, elven infant. Its face was covered in mucus and blood and dirt. It wore nothing but a small loincloth fashioned from an old piece of fabric. Its ears were especially large, tips red from the cold and drooping downward. Its eyes were a bright blue, shiny with tears. Temple's eyes widened in shock. "Oh my God." Walter, a second warrior, frowned. "What is it, dude?" He saw the infant, eyes also widening as Temple picked up the child. "Hey," he soothed as he looked at the baby. The baby looked up at him, and almost instantly its cries ceased. Temple smiled. "It's okay, little one." Walter now looked worried. "Where's the mother?" Temple glanced around. All that could be seen was a splatter of blood on the ground, followed by footprints leading into the strong current of the river. He sighed shakily. "I don't think he has one anymore." Tears sprang to his eyes, thinking of how the baby was now an orphan, while being completely helpless and alone. He looked back at Walter. "We need to bring him to Garmon. He'll know what to do." Skip thundered through the woods, Temple clutching the reins with one hand and holding the baby with the other. The largest mushroom of all, the castle, came into view, towering over the other houses. The stable rested beside it. Temple leapt off of Skip, removing his saddle and bridle as he closed the fence. He offered Skip a carrot, which he gratefully accepted, crunching it between his flat teeth. Cradling the baby in his arms, he ran into the castle, fear coursing through him. The wooden doors clattered shut as he began to make the trek up the stairs. At long last, he made it to the top of the stairs. The room was truly a grand affair. Beautiful stained glass lit up the floor where the lightning flashed. The fireplace roared, orange flames slowly flickering within. A throne sat at the front of the room, wood adorned with jewels on a luxurious cushion. Elegant rugs and plants covered the floor. Portraits and paintings scattered the wall. Gormon was there already, adding a few more vines to his crown. He turned at the sound of the door opening. Upon seeing Temple, his strongest warrior, soaked and holding a tiny infant, he set a crown on the table. The crown was forgotten as he approached the two. Goodness! Temple, my boy! What happened? He asked, taking the baby in his arms. I don't know, sir. I was patrolling the woods and... His voice trailed off. Garmon looked over at the baby, noting the blood and filth that covered its soft skin. He walked toward a small container in an adjacent bathroom, which was already filled by the rain coming in through the window. He brought it towards his fireplace, pouring the rainwater into a pot that hung over it. While the water heated up, Gormon picked up a clean cloth and gently cleaned the baby's face. Its features became more visible as he used the warm water to bathe the poor child. Bright blue eyes and soft blonde hair, smooth pale skin, large pointed ears that drooped slightly, a now clean cut on the tip of the left one. A cloth diaper and a clean green tunic were slipped over his tiny body. Gormon handed the child back to Temple. What do I do with him? He asked as Gormon handed him a warm bottle of milk. Feed him, Gormon explained, and in the morning bring him to the orphanage. Temple's brow furrowed in confusion as he placed the teat of the bottle into the baby's mouth. I thought you'd want him here. I think he'd be safer here. Gormon shook his head. Oh, no, look around. I don't have the resources to care for a child, especially one at this stage of life. Temple's expression dulled, almost showing anger. He's a helpless infant. The orphanage won't care about him. They didn't care about me. His expression saddened as he thought about the neglect. How could he let this poor, innocent child suffer through what he did? Gormon didn't acknowledge it. I'm sorry, Temple, but you know that it's probably best for... Temple didn't let him finish, eyes burning with anger. It's not what's best for him. It's what's best for you. The moment they left his mouth, he wished he'd said nothing. Gormon looked shocked. Temple's eyes filled with tears as he ran out the door, down the stairs, and into the night. The next morning, Temple sighed as he stood outside the doors to the orphanage. He looked down at the infant in his arms. With another heavy sigh, he opened the door and walked inside. It was complete chaos. Children were running around, knocking things over, and causing a ruckus as an attendant yelled and chased after them. A second attendant saw Temple there. Why, hello, she greeted with a weary smile. How may I help you? Temple held out the baby. I found this little one in the woods, no mother or father nearby. I was told by Gormon to bring him here. It hurt his heart to even admit that Gormon, his father figure, had told him to bring the child to what he believed was one of the worst places in the village. The attendant grabbed the child and smiled at him. I see. Does he have a name? Temple realized he had not yet named the child. As the attendant asked that question, he blurted out the first thing that came to mind. Pip, he said. His name is Pip. The attendant smiled again. What a lovely name. Are you sure we will take good care of him? Temple nodded. Can I say goodbye to him? He asked, a lump forming in his throat at the thought of leaving Pip. The attendant nodded back and handed him Pip. Temple smiled fondly at the now giggling infant. Hey, I have to go now. But don't be sad. I know you'll do great things someday. Tears stung the corners of his eyes, and he took a deep breath, trying to hold it together. Goodbye, Pip. It's going to be okay. He hugged the tiny baby, handing him back to the attendant. And with that, they walked out, tears streaming down his face. He sat below a large tree, leaning against the rough bark. Forgive me, Pip, he whispered, placing a hand on his chest, where he once held Pip. Hey everybody, that was Tabby Gamer 404. I messed up on a few lines of that, but I worked really hard on this story. I am really proud of it. I'm actually trying to get it published. Thank you all for listening in. The first chapter I will read probably in the next few days, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, Tavy Gamer 404 out. Peace.